Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. I'm your host, Tammy, and with me, as always, are my beautiful co-hosts, Ash and Suze. Ladies, how are you doing tonight?
I'm splendid.
Splendid. I'm excellent.
Still going with the excellent, eh?
Fuck yes.
Dave, are you with us tonight?
Swelltastic.
Ooh, it's a good one.
That's right.
Oh, fuck is that shit? No, I'm joking.
I looked it up on Urban Thesaurus.
Oh, nice.
So tonight we have a special guest. We have Zach Schmidt from the Schmidt House podcast. Zach, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Y'all have little intros that are all spectacular and all that stuff. I'm just existing here. Things are busy in my life. So every day above ground's a good day.
Well, we used to compete with the word excellent, so we're always trying to find new ones.
Except me. I'm like, fuck you bitches.
So Zach, this week is kind of an exciting week for Diagolon because they're doing their Road Rage Terror Tour. So since we have you here and you're, a well-known member of Diagolon, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of what's happening with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been lucky enough to be able to be part of the planning in certain capacities. So I know a little bit of the stuff that's been going on, and it's been a huge success so far. A little bit of speed bumps along the way. I know, the people from Antifa and the Canadian Anti-Hate Network are trying their best to get it shut down before it even starts. But they've had a couple of good events so far. The one in Ottawa was a great success. I think there's just shy of something like 200 people or something like that there. So it's a good showing. But it's mostly, this is all just for Jeremy and Alex and Derek's fan base. That's what it's for. They've been wanting to do something like this for a while, and it was just the timing was right, and they put in a lot of effort to be able to get it done. So they're just going coast to coast and meeting all of the DAGs right across Canada. So they're going to be in Saskatchewan this week. So I'm excited to meet them for the first time in real life. I've talked to them a bunch over the internet on podcasts and shows and stuff like that. But I'm really excited to be able to meet them and so many other DAGs from our community around southern Saskatchewan here. And yeah, that's basically it. But there's so many people that are trying to paint it for something that it's not, between the mainstream media, smaller outlets like that. And like I said before, the Antifa people and the people at the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, who have a particularly distaste for all things Diagolon. But like I said, it's been a good start so far, and we're looking to continue it on all month of July.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen a lot of this stuff kind of floating around Twitter and was wondering how it was going. Zach, how did you come to be a part of Diagolon?
Well, for me, because I was started out in this space and I was happy with just, 5, 20, whatever the case may be, listeners and people who are watching my show. And, I started just looking who else was in this space in Canada. And around that time, the convoy had started. So I was watching lots of people stream live from Ottawa, seeing who like the big names are. So, I come across people like Viva Fry, although I guess I knew about him for a little bit before then, because he was PPC in the 21 election. But I eventually just came across Diagolon and Jeremy, and I started paying attention to them. I'm like, these guys kind of have figured it out. Their pulse, their finger on the pulse is pretty accurate for lots of the stuff that's going on. They're saying that something that nobody else is saying in Canada, right? So that really attracted my attention. And it wasn't until the fall-ish, or I don't know, whenever they did their big thing when Jeremy was locked up, that was when I really started paying attention to Diagolon and said, like, this is kind of where my community is. This is where my people are. And this is where I can kind of find a good fit and find your friends. And evidently that's kind of where it started. And I started, approaching people from the community and just very humbly saying like, hey, like I'm new here and I want to talk to some of these guys. So I was able to get Derek on first, and then I had Jeremy and then Ferry on later. So I had the trifecta of the head honchos of Diagolon, and that really helped me grow my that helped me grow my audience, because the community is so strong in Diagolon and we all support each other and we're all wanting to see each other succeed. And it's definitely helped my show grow. But I'm really fortunate that that was kind of the space that I found myself in, because I probably would have never come across Diagolon in maybe the constructive sphere that I did. And I think that that is one thing where many people, especially since the tour, or lots of the times that Trudeau and Poilievre have been, trying to smear Diagolon, our numbers keep growing. And when the anti-hate and Antifa, when they start pulling stunts like this and getting things canceled, the ticket sales go up. People start paying more attention to Diagolon. So that was kind of it for me. But the whole thing about what I found out about the community was it wasn't the boogeyman that the mainstream media and the government is painting it out to be. You know, if you read things about HateGate and the Diagolon files, if you read into those, you'll really find about the truth about how much the government has actually been weaponized against Diagolon. And you look at things like the Coots 4, how that was all trumped up and made up. There's been lots of evidence that have proved that. So, I mean, like, for anybody that's listening that has no idea, or they're just looking at Diagolon and be like, oh, geez, those Diagonal people are doing all this awful stuff. It's like, actually just start talking to some of the people or what Canada used to be probably before all of this immigration stuff and diversity hires and the things that are destroying Canada that we can see at face value started coming back, or it's coming into play during the 90s. That's the realm that Diagolon lives in, is the old school Canada and the values that we were founded on.
Hey, Zach. Sorry.
Go ahead,
I was just wondering if you could maybe, just for any of our audience out there who doesn't actually know who Diagolon is, can you give like a breakdown of the comedic way it started? And like there's so many funny elements to Diagolon that people on the left, they don't appreciate how it started as a meme, and they've gone kind of out of control with the idea that there's this huge entity of hateful people who just I don't know, these scary violent people, and that's not even at all where it came from. So can you explain a little bit about how that kind of developed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the hateful rhetoric is a joke, because it's like these people are the most hateful people that are coming at us. They're the ones that are trying to get the events canceled. They're trying to get us removed from social media. They don't think that we should be able to have a voice. And it's all founded upon a lie, because they're so stuck in this like area of cognitive dissonance and it truly because the left can't meme. So when they come across one, they have no idea how to deal with it, right? So, but Diagolon was started. It's the brainchild. There's no network. There's no membership. There's no union dues that you got to play to fill up the goat. But it was started by Jeremy Mackenzie, who was an Afghanistan veteran. And this is kind of how the Diagonal country started to form. Was he noticed that there's an ideological similarity between everything during COVID and a little bit before that spanned from Alaska to Florida and basically captured Alberta and Saskatchewan, went all the way down. And there's just thematically lots of the same ideology amongst these states in this diagonal fashion. So that was kind of how it started. And then he was high on edibles and drew the black and white flag, old slashy. He was sitting on the toilet and did it. Said, we have a fictional country, so we need a fictional flag. And someone did a national anthem for us. And then Jeremy was streaming for a while at that point in time, and he had a little sidekick. It's a goat figurine. So he called it Philip. And Philip has a really tough time with narcotics, and he has time traveling abilities. Some other superpowers that we don't even know of, really. We don't know the extent of his power, but I mean, he's been going on different shenanigans, such as capturing a bunch of ambulances for God knows what reason. I mean, he tried to open a portal a couple weeks back to be able to get dead soldiers out to be able to fight for the Canadian Army against Antifa. There's been just so many different things that this fictional goat has been up to.
And I do believe Philip is the mayor, right?
He's the emperor. Yeah.
Oh, the emperor now.
Emperor. Yeah. So
very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
So there's tons of bigotry that goes along with it too, because our enemies are numerous. I mean, we're raising an army of bees and our attack bees, like tactical attack bees. Like these are some serious things here, right? But the bees leader Jeffrey flew into Doug Ford's mouth during that one interview last summer. So rest in peace, Jeffrey. So there's this whole lore and things that go along with it, but it's all just the brainchild of Jeremy McKenzie. And then, like I said, there's other people that kind of joined in on it with Derek Rance, who had been streaming with Jeremy for a while. And then Alex Brand, the Ferryman's Toll, who kind of came up as a superstar, especially like when Jeremy went to jail for his trumped up charges that he got. It was completely, all of the charges were stayed. He got off on all of them, which was like probably a Canadian record. But, you know, someone like the Ferryman jumped in and really took the reins and kind of kept it all going. And the community just kind of spawned out of that. It was just something called Find Your Friends. And that was what attracted a lot of people to Diagolon, because majority of us, I would say actually like pretty much everybody, has a COVID story. And that's where lots of us were able to kind of connect with one another and really help each other out in that fashion, because we're ousted by our family. Lots of people lost their jobs, lost their living situation. You know, there's even people that got divorced over it, and obviously like the death jabs as well, right? We lost family members. So everybody was kind of so just distraught over COVID, and we really had the community to be able to prop ourselves up and kind of get back and then start building each other up in such a positive fashion. So that's realistically what Diagolon actually is. It's just a community. Like I said, there's no membership, no nothing, but the jokes aside, it's like we're all kind of there for each other. But that's where it really stemmed from, was just having fun on the internet and saying things that upset the government.
That's amazing. We do have the video, Dave, if you can bring it up. This is one of my favorite videos ever. Zach, I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. It's the how Diagolon started.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Story time. I got a story for you. It's a true story.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act.
Diagolon.
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 Diagolon, a far-right extremist group.
We're talking about a group that is organized, driven by an extreme ideology.
A so-called accelerationist group.
Formed by a former member of the Canadian Armed Forces.
Which aims to accelerate racial conflict to lead to the eventual creation of a white ethno-state.
Its stated purpose is, quote, to incite a race war. Dude. It's over. It's fucking done. Members of Parliament are talking about a meme to justify a state of emergency.
They're super country. Dude, did we predict this on one of the old fucking streams? Remember Diagonal Country all the way to Alaska? Dude, you know, here it is, all the way from Florida, all the way up, super diagonal country.
The Justin Trudeau regime declared war on a pretend country that doesn't exist.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act.
How much vitriol do we have to see of honk honk, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler?
Oh man.
Yeah, that cracks me up.
Oh my
When
god.
Ferry and Jeremy are laughing over the House of Commons, using it to use the Emergencies Act, it gets me every single time just how funny they thought it was at that point in time.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That's one of my favorite videos. I've watched it multiple times. I really like Ferryman as well. And he said something to me the other day on X that it really made me think, and I actually really appreciated what he said. So I want to read it. My tweet was that I went into a large retail store and every single employee was an immigrant. That's fine. Everyone needs to work and make a living. But what I find upsetting is that none of them are speaking English. How is this considered appropriate? And this is something that I've noticed more and more and more recently. And it's, I don't like it. I'm just going to say it. Like, I don't like it.
Just to be blunt.
You've become a noticer.
Yes. And he responded and he said, it's not fine. This is your country and you don't have to qualify your dislike of endless foreigners invading it. And that comment has actually stuck with me for about a week since he made it, because that's exactly what I was doing. I felt like at the time I wanted to make a point, but I needed to, do the, I'm not a racist, but, and when he said that, I was like, you know what? He's 100% right. We don't have to qualify these things. This is happening, and people do need to start. What did you call me? A noticer?
Yeah, noticer.
Yeah. People need to start noticing, and they need to start, I guess, speaking up about it. And I do want to say, like, I've talked to many of the guys from Diagolon, and I haven't met one yet that I don't like. And I haven't met one that is actually a racist bigot, like what they've been labeled. So, I'm glad you came today, because I think it's important that everybody gets an understanding of, kind of what you guys are actually about. And so that people can understand that you're not some crazy, hateful Nazi terrorist group. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And you guys should definitely have the ferryman on here. I'll make a connection with you guys, because he's honestly, the more that I've been paying attention to the political sphere in Canada, there's some people that have it figured out to a degree that just get it. And I think Ferry's one of those people. I don't think that there's very few people I think could have a conversation with him and not be swayed towards his opinion. His knowledge is just second to none, I feel. But yeah, you're right. And I know exactly what tweet you were talking about, because I was watching that kind of play out in real time. The whole thing about it is, we're not afraid to be called racist bigots, because it means nothing. The left has watered down so many of those terms: Nazi, transphobe, blah, 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 any name that they want to call you. They've watered it down so much that it's meaningless. I mean, if we take a look at the term Nazi, the reason why they call literally anybody that disagrees with them Nazis is to dehumanize them. Because throughout history, we've been told that Nazis are the worst people on the entire planet. So they throw that label and hope it can stick, because what do they go around saying? That you can go punch Nazis, you can go murder Nazis. Nazis are the worst people ever, right? So they do that purposefully. So part of, I think, the appeal of Diagolon is people that say what they want to say. They speak truthfully and honest, and a message that resonates with so many Canadians, like yourself. You kind of, that what Barry said resonated with you. Like, there is no problem in saying that Canada should be for Canadians, right? For a long time, and even the People's Party of Canada has been echoing this, so that they have to go back. We've jumped the shark with this whole immigration thing, and it's not just the Liberals for the conservatives out there that are listening. Like, the conservatives are completely on board with this stuff as well. You just probably haven't figured it out yet. Mm-hmm. But that's where being able to say this stuff has moved the Overton window. I think Ferry highlighted what you had said, because 6 months, a year ago, you would have instantly clapped back and said, I'm not a racist, I'm not a bigot, I'm not nothing. But you're at least consciously thinking about it. So much so that label has mean nothing. But that's because Diagolon has taken all of those punches on the chin, while the politicians, specifically in the conservative camp, have not wanted to say a thing because they're afraid of it. They want to appeal to people that hate them. And Diagolon doesn't really give a fuck at all, right? Because we're hated anyways, right? So for us, I got in a lot of trouble over this recently, but the Diagolon holds more political sway in Canada right now than the People's Party of Canada does. And that might be an unpopular opinion, but if you actually look at it, it's not Max that he's been echoing, and he's had a strong line on immigration. I'll give him that, but not to the degree that that he probably could have to get a positive upswing and get that message resonating with Canadians. Diagolon has been doing that. It wasn't a couple months ago. It wasn't the PPC sign that was on that trailer that Pierre Poilievre walked out of. It was Diagolon, and that caused a whole media shitstorm and all this stuff. So that's where it's like, if there's a theory that goes along, there's no enemies to the right. And I think if lots of like the more like-minded people on the right started viewing things that way, I think there'd be a lot less infighting, and you would actually be able to constructively push in the same direction, right? If everybody, wherever their flag was planted, and just saying is the left is objectively the enemy, and we need to pull back that way, but you're not going to do so by picking enemies on the right. So when Diagolon is over on our side of things and calling out politicians and saying that there's no political solution, whether you agree with that or not, don't counter signal that, because that's what's actually shifting it. It's that hard counterweight to the right. not the middle of the ground. I don't want to be called the mean name. That is actually shifting the perspectives. And I think that that's where like where the People's Party could have like a really big upswing to some of this stuff. The ferryman congratulated Maxime Bernier when he was out in PEI, and he basically was telling this foreign student that he needed to go back. And Ferry said like all the PPC had to do was embrace a little bit of racism, and the PPC completely came at Ferry over it. And Ferry's like, I'm probably going to vote PPC despite all this stuff. But it's just like there's such a disconnect any single time that anybody on the right sticks their head up and shouts shouts anything that could be deemed as racist. We're the ones that are taking the hits, and then people in the middle are just staying quiet. They don't want to be bothered with anything because they might be canceled. Well, eventually the woke mob's going to come for you anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Very true.
I mean, I'm not really afraid of being canceled. I really don't care. And I do not side with any political party. If there was one, I guess that I had to choose, much like Ferry, I'd be probably voting PPC, but I don't trust any politician. So that's just my opinion. I don't know if Ash and Suze want to chime in on that.
Yeah, I think they're all the same. They all can't be trusted. They all got the same final destination. Just some of them take the, the scenic route. Some of them take the, drive the speed limit, but their destinations are all the same. That's my
yeah. I'm feeling the same way as that as well. I would probably still vote PPC at this point, but I feel like they're failing to garner enough support that I just don't know if I don't know where they're going right now. I think there needs to be a little bit more maybe organization going so that some of the people who would vote for them, they need to see maybe a little bit more sort of structure. And so they would have my vote for right now, but I do not trust any political party at this point. And I do think that the biggest problem is weaponized compassion, because so many people can't get over the fact that they don't want to sound racist, and so they won't say anything, even if they actually think it in their heads. And something like racism is so ingrained in Canadians to not want to exude that type of property that they'll bend over backwards to not look like a racist. And that's something that I have such a hard time with in Canada, is because so many people say, well, what is the culture of Canada? Culture is multiculturalism in Canada. But the problem is that anytime that Canadians start to speak out against the mass immigration that we're seeing, then we get shit on as being racist. And it's like, how can you say that when we're trying to have a culture in Canada, and now you're telling us that we're not allowed to, have an opinion on it? So it's bullshit.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, one of the biggest mistakes that Canadians are making right now is believing that any one political party or political figure is coming to save us. The only thing that's coming to save us is going to be Canadians themselves.
Or the aliens. Just saying.
Yes.
Well, how much attention have you kind of given nationalism?
How do you mean?
Well, like Canada is a European diaspora population, and for the bulk and that's why I said it's like the late 80s, early 90s is the Canada that Diagolon is kind of modeling. It's before lots of this mass immigration started taking over. It's before the Agenda 21 was signed by Brian Mulroney and all of the stuff that I'm sure you guys know about. But like, if you look into lots of the stuff that's going on in Europe, there's a huge nationalist uprising in there as far as like the sphere of the people. Like, look at Ireland. Mm-hmm. Ireland is exploding with nationalism. Canada doesn't, like you said. There's a bunch of apathy because people don't want to be called mean names and they don't want to say what's right. But nobody, if you walk around Superstore or Walmart, like, you can't look around and be like, yes, this is the Canada that I remember. It's gotten so out of control so fast that I think a lot of people are noticing things a lot quicker now, which might be to our advantage. But I think the more that you look at it, the relationship that people need to have with one another is a nationalistic approach. We need to unify things around language, around culture, around tradition. And for a long time, we've been beaten and said that that's not Canadian. Canadians have to be accepting. Canadians have to be multicultural. And once you kind of go down enough rabbi holes, you might come across things such as Europa and see that there's other alternative things of history of where people are asking these questions, and these are becoming extremely more popular, and people are kind of waking up to the fact that this is all kind of controlled. This is all by design, that white replacement is completely something that they're wanting to get done. So until you decide to say that enough is enough, this isn't the future that I want for my kids, then it's just going to continue to get worse. And that's where I think certainly lots of people that is kind of like branched off from like an ideology that was sparked by Diagolon, is there's people outside of it that are noticing that nationalism is probably the solution to what Canada, to the problems that Canada is facing. But again, like not a lot of people actually want to explore that conversation, because then you're going to sound like a certain Austrian dictator.
Right. And that would be the problem, because like Hitler came from a nationalist sort of ideology gone wrong. Right. And even the United States, we as Canadians have kind of been brainwashed to think of the U.S. population as somehow lesser than us or less civilized because they're so nationalist, like, oh, America, and it's like we've kind of been trained to think kind of negatively about Americans because they're so nationalist that, like, look at them, those flag wavers. But, I
think you're confusing nationalism and patriotism.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree I think they've tried to make us think a certain way. But looking back now, I'm like, oh wow, no, that's actually a good thing. And I think the United States, if they fall, like we're all fucked. Like they need to be patriotic. And so,
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think there's been a long period of time where Canadians have been convinced that American style politics is wrong. I mean, hell, whenever some leftist comes at me on Twitter, the first thing they go and they see the Second Amendment is in my bio of my Twitter profile. And they'll say like, oh, don't trust this guy who doesn't even realize that he's in Canada. It's like, do you not understand that the words written on that piece of paper, the only thing that is securing Canadians' safety? Right? Like they have no clue about the power of simply the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, two things that Canada desperately needs. We don't have the right to defend ourselves. We don't have the right to say, specifically, if you were to question things about the Holocaust, right? Like right there, that'll get you to jail. And I'm sure that you guys are completely on top of things going on Bill C-63, where someone can make an anonymous tip that you said something that they think that you're going to say something racist, and that can get you up to life in prison. Like that's not hyperbole. That's like exactly what's going to happen. So no, like there's things about the American system that are definitely something that I think Canadians need to get more on board with. And it's funny because when they say American style politics, it's like, who brought Hillary Clinton to Canada? That was the Liberals,
yeah, exactly.
Right? But at the same time, they're saying,
that line.
but they're moronic in thinking that Poilievre is Maple MAGA and that he's the same as Trump. Like, first of all, like Trump's backing aside, but if you actually look at what the MAGA movement is definitely has nothing even close to. I would say the closest thing is Bernier, and Bernier is still far from it. So to call Poilievre Maple MAGA is just outright embarrassing and intellectually inferior to actually try to put that label on him. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, but do you think that maybe they're doing that to try to sway people towards him on purpose? And I say that because I said before, I don't stand with any political party, but I don't personally trust him. I know a lot of people listening are not going to like that, but quite frankly don't give a fuck. I don't trust him, and I have wondered for some time now if the Maple MAGA thing is just to create a popularity around him, to kind of get those votes. And really what people don't realize is, it's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. I mean, the ultimate question you have to ask yourself is, are leaders selected or elected?
Exactly.
And once you kind of come to the realization,
we know the answer.
Yeah. Like it's all under control. So yeah, no, I could completely get behind that. That's what they're doing. I'm just saying it's like the people that are falling into that trap. That's where it's intellectually disingenuous to actually follow into like and do that. And I do find like if you look at, I would say lots of the people that you've been adversarial on, like all three of you on Twitter, you look at someone like Debbie Bloodcunt and I don't know, like the Pleb or like whoever else is in that conservative influencer space, they are all kind of just ignoring lots of like the criticisms of him because they're just so blinded by Trudeau hate that they're willing to kind of just go along with it. They're not thinking critically and noticing all of these problems or things that he's not saying. They're like, oh, well, he said it in French. It's like, yeah, but why did he say it in French? Because the Quebec people will really identify with having a nationalistic culture, right? So he's going to tell the Quebec people that they should be able to have less immigration, but he's not telling that to the rest of Canada. Meanwhile, the next day he's going to go and put on a different dress up just like Trudeau, but they completely give him a pass for that. So that's what I mean. It's like, it's really that whole conservative, especially like what you see online, is really kind of twisting the needle to give them the advantage. And then again, they just have to go to any town hall or any Axe the Tax rally or whatever the case may be, and just say a couple of keywords and be like, hey, you don't want another 4 years of Trudeau, right? Well, you got to vote for our guy. And if you vote for the other team, then you'll split the vote and it's your fault that we got Trudeau, right? There's this huge guilt around what's going on in the Canadian political sphere. And it's all because there's the apathy and people just aren't willing to put in 2 minutes of effort and actually take a look about what's going on.
Yeah, I definitely, I can agree with that. I think people are just, I think a lot of them are so frustrated with everything that's going on that they're just taking the first thing that looks good. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of clinging to that because we are in such a sad state of affairs in Canada. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he really can't eat an apple though, right?
But I want to go back to that point for a sec. But that is the low bar that the Conservatives are setting. They had to find some like half-wit journalist and Pierre to just stand there in his Joe Biden aviators and stand there and eat an apple and answer some of the dumbest questions ever. Like my fucking 4-year-old could do that. Like I'm completely serious. So it's like that is the low bar and the standard that we have for having a charismatic leader. And again, like he's just going to go put on a different do-rag and go to a Kalistani parade and say like, we need you guys here. We're going to fast track immigration. And the CPC bros are just clapping seals the entire time, backing him and not noticing like, hey, this isn't going to blow up in our faces.
Yeah. And I think too, like a lot of people have forgotten that they were really quiet in the beginning of COVID.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
they were.
I think probably nobody here got the vaccine, and I know all of us were against it from the beginning. So if you think back to that time, I remember the day when the vaccines were it was starting to become mandatory, and it was crickets from the Conservatives. And again, I do not support any one political party. I'm not for any of them, not even PPC. But what I will say is PPC, Maxime Bernier, he was very vocal from the beginning about the vaccines. And I do remember that well. The Conservatives were very quiet, and it wasn't until it was the cool thing to do, i.e. when the Freedom Convoys started, that they really started speaking against it.
I think to that point is like when Max says that the Conservative Party rules by polling, that's 100% true. That's why it took the truckers to show up on their doorstep before they said, oh, we're on the wrong side of this. We got to backtrack on a couple of things.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny how quickly people forget. And again, I'm not saying that, PPC is the be all end all either. I don't trust them either. But I have a memory, and I remember what those times were and how I felt. And I remember when pretty much everybody was dead silent on it while we were, left to sit in our homes and weren't allowed to participate in society. So, I hope that people maybe start to remember that. I mean, I don't judge people because I think everybody kind of wakes up at their own time. There was a time where I was not political at all, and I quite frankly didn't give a rat's ass about any of it. And then, throughout COVID and stuff like that, I slowly started to wake up, and it took me a while to get to where I am now, where I just have no trust for anybody. So I hope that eventually happens with the others and they kind of start to see that, I guess.
Well, I mean, and if you think about it, like when I was at the convoy, one of the only political figures there was Randy Hillier and Maxime. And Randy was an independent member of provincial parliament because he got kicked out of the Conservative Party, right? So that's what it took for him to be there, was to get kicked out of the Conservative Party. That's what it takes to be to actually speak up.
Yeah. I think Canadians need to come to the realization that we need to save ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We really
Absolutely.
do.
I got 2 cents about Max, whatever his name is. Like you, Tammy, I don't trust any of them. I think that Max, says what we all want to hear because he has no seat in the House. And if he were, by chance, to get a seat in the House, I do think he would become compromised, just like the rest of them. That's my thoughts.
And I think that's a fair statement. It's a fair, thought to have. I don't think that the tax is getting axed either. To me, the tax bullshit is just another, we're all in this together and stay home, save lives, whatever other bullshit they fed us, right? It's just, buzzwords that they want stuck in our heads, right? It's propaganda.
Well, and they tried to just axe it for the summer, like,
yes.
Fuck you.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
even Pierre, I think he was in an interview and someone asked if he would retract or whatever, overturn or whatever, Bill C-63, that's what it's called, right? And he's like, yeah, but would he really? I'm sure he would just change it to change a couple things, but it would essentially be the same shit.
Well, okay, so that's very interesting because over the last week, him and a bunch of other conservatives have come out and said that they're against Bill C-63, but not one of them have said because it's a bad bill or they're against censorship. They kind of use this word salad to make it look like that's what they're saying, but they're not. Their biggest complaint about it is that it's going to cost $200 million and that it's going to bloat bureaucracy. That's their complaint with it. That's why they want it gone. And I completely agree with you. If you look at the history of the Conservative Party, it's like they signed us up for Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, the Global Compact on Migration, the Century Initiative. Like, these are all conservative things. Paris Accord, exactly. So the other big one that a lot of people don't know about is Bill C-51, which is the anti-terrorism legislation. It's essentially the Canadian soft equivalent of the Patriot Act down in the United States, which is like their overall arching thing that they can spy on anybody for any reason because of terrorism, right? So that's what the Conservatives brought in as well. And I think it's completely, if C-63 doesn't pass through the Liberals and there's maybe an election happens or it just doesn't go through, it will for sure, some iteration of it in some fashion will be passed by the Conservatives. And remember, the polling is showing that they're going to get like a super majority. Nobody likes Trudeau. We've already talked about passing the torch and prepping everything for the uniparty and the powers that be that control everything. They're ready to pass the torch to Poilievre. Like, that's been telegraphed for a long time. So with his super majority that he's going to get an overwhelming amount of votes for, that is going to be when they're going to actually step on the gas pedal and put lots of this stuff through. And like you said, this is something that Diagolon has echoed for a long time, is expect to self-rescue. There's nobody coming to save you. So yeah, if you guys are the people that are getting behind political parties and think that you can check a box or check a color or cheer hard for your team and vote harder, like, that's not how things are going to happen. Like, the collectivization needs to happen. Centralized culture, traditions, language, all of that type of stuff is how we're going to get through it. Finding like-minded people and actually saying what is right, not what is easy. That's how we're going to get through it, not voting harder.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Zach, one of the things that I wanted to touch on and kind of have you explain, and this is just kind of going back to the whole Diagolon thing, is HateGate. Because I think it was your episode 131 where you talked about HateGate, and it was very informative. And I think it's something that everybody should kind of, they should know the story of what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like I told you before, our community is really big on memes. So the guy who did these FOIOP requests, and this will start the story, is he goes by Cocaine Rim Job, or CRJ. So that's how serious our people are. It's like, that's who did the FOIOP request, is Cocaine Rim Job. So just remember that. But what was brought forward through this first round of FOIOPs, and there's more to come, is over 1,500 pages worth of documents that linked, and it was just, tell me everything about Diagolon. What do you guys got on Diagolon? And basically what it came down to is that the government paid the Canadian Anti-Hate Network to create the boogeyman of Diagolon. And then that was used and cited by the media, which is also paid for by the government. And then those media articles was cited by the RCMP as justification for the use of the Emergencies Act. So again, this is the government paying an organization to provide information to another organization to be able to tell the RCMP that this is what needs to be done, and get a recommendation from them to be able to end the Freedom Convoy. So that's the bulk and like the very, very quick version of that. If you actually pull up Son of Plaid or Edgy D on Twitter, I think in his pinned profile there's a video that he made that summarizes it all incredibly well. So I definitely recommend go watch that after. It'll give you the entire breakdown of it. Greg Wycliffe has also done some really good stuff about the HateGate. But so yeah, basically with these FOIOP requests, all these pages, Karima Assad went through them all, did up an article with, I think it's Elsa, I can't remember her last name, was the other author on it. Anyways, went through all of this stuff, summarized it, and realistically just said, here's what you guys need to know. And I think it's like 80 pages or something like that. People can go through and read it all. If you go to HateGate.com, I think is what it is, and you'll pull it right up and read through it. And basically it just paints the picture of how the government has been, an intelligence agency specifically, and I've heard the number $40 million is what the RCMP and CSIS spent chasing around the bigoted, remember, like the goat statue that has a problem with cocaine,
Yes.
the bigoted goat Philip. They spent $40 million chasing it around and trying to find out where all of this bigotry comes from and who is in this network and all this stuff. But again, so to go back to what the Emergencies Act, so this was the justification for the Emergencies Act. Part of it was connecting what happened in Coutts, Alberta, with those arrests with Ottawa, right? So that's why, and I can't recall, and I don't want to speak offhand, but there's patches found on a plate carrier, and if you see the pictures of all of the guns, and you see the Diagolon slash. So that was basically all of the evidence that the government needed to be able to do the Emergencies Act. And this is where, I'm sure your listeners are completely familiar with how it went. Police went in and started boot stomping people, knocked down an old lady with her walker from horseback and stuff like that. So that's how that all went down. But that's what these FOIOP requests, and that's what HateGate ultimately exposes, is just the internal corruption of the government. And there's things like that are in there that have basically showed that Justin Trudeau and Marco Mendocino and so many other people that testified at the Public Order Emergency Commission, that their stories aren't actually correct.
What?
Right?
They lied? I'm shocked.
Exactly.
So shocked.
Right. So there's so much evidence in this. And like I said, this was just the first round of FOIOPs that were done. So there will probably be more to come. I'm not kind of in those meetings, in our secret Diagolon meetings that you guys aren't able to attend. But yeah, like there's going to be more stuff coming, and it'll really just, Jeremy has said this before. I think he said this on his testimony at the POEC, is that this is the biggest intelligence failure in Canadian history. And it just goes to show that this is the state of Canada, where we have such a nanny state where the government is watching so many people wipe their nose and completely ignoring things like SOGI and pride parades and you name it. But they're wanting to chase around a goat statue.
And just for the
really
record,
embarrassing.
For the record, right now, 2 of the remaining Coutts men, Tony Oleanick and Chris Carbert,
they're through trial right now.
Yeah, they're going through trial right now, and it's not looking like there's much evidence to show that they had any connection with Diagolon whatsoever. So, this was like the big reason why the Emergencies Act was even invoked in the first place. And,
Yeah, and there's more to that specifically, like apart from what the patches that were on the plate carrier, there is a picture of Chris Lysak at one of the events that Jeremy had put on a couple summers ago. There's a picture of him and Jeremy, and that was the connection as well, is that they had this picture. And even Jeremy had said, like, I don't know who this guy is. Like, he doesn't know. Like, do the Montreal Canadiens or the Toronto Maple Leafs know everybody that bought a Maple Leafs jersey and supports them? Like, that's basically what the government was asking and grilling Diagolon over, is like, do you know this person? Do you know this person? Do you know this person? It's like, I don't know who an anonymous name in a Rumble chat is. Right. So that's basically was part of the evidence as well.
Wow.
It's wild to me that it turned into what it turned into, and it was the biggest nothing ever.
Yeah, and now you guys are being said that you're scheduled a summer hate fest.
Yes, Philip must. He has a blood pact with some evil demon that we don't know how to solve his lust for power, and so he's going town to town and just absolutely wreaking all hell until that can be satisfied. So unfortunately, I think Regina's coming up here pretty soon, so look out there. Calgary, Vancouver, right? So right across the country, Philip is causing all sorts of hell. But no, you're absolutely right, and this is where so many people are wanting to divert their attention to and say that this can't happen. Yet those same people are saying it's completely fine to show your dick and walk down the street in front of children, and because it's under the guise of pride, right? There's conversations and things that you can say and do that are only allowed to go in one direction, and there's these gatekeepers that are clearly outlined in the HateGate article. That are realistically the ones that are subsidized by the government, and the government is saying, here's the boogeyman of the day, and here's who we have to go after, and here's the justification to do it. And that's the state of Canada, right? And that's why so many people aren't wanting to get engaged, because they're afraid of them being the next person that is going to come down on. And cancel culture is huge in the States because there's I think a little bit more sway to do things, but I've definitely even noticed in Canada that there's a lot less support for lots of this left ideology. I think they kind of jumped the shark and people are getting fed up with it. Like I wrote a Substack article about this, and basically the premise is like pride is declining. And you can see it on social media specifically, because 2 years ago, if you didn't update your profile picture to a rainbow and you're a corporation, you were in deep shit. You would get a leftist woke mob coming after you so fast that you would cave instantly. And, I saw last summer that it was a little bit less. And, the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, which is they were all on it. Every single chance they would get, they would talk about that stuff. And the CFL itself has been talking about diversity being strength and all of that stuff. So it's ingrained in there pretty hard. But the Rough Riders didn't change their logo this year. And I thought that was a huge kind of noticing moment where it's like, okay, this is starting to turn just enough where we can start kind of pushing back, right?
That's a win.
Is when the biggest CFL team doesn't update it. Now, they did still have the tranny flag front and center during the national anthem and stuff like that on the field for the month of June. But not changing your social media picture, that was a huge faux pas in the past, and it's not anymore. So that's what I mean. Like there are little silver linings along the way that people are starting to figure this shit out. I would hope that we can do it a little bit quicker, but I'm not that optimistic. I think there's a lot more pain that Canadians need to suffer before we're going to figure it out.
I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ash.
I was just going to make a comment. Can you imagine if Jeremy McKenzie and Ferryman just walked around swinging their wieners out in public during the, Diagolon tour? It just, it wouldn't work.
But they'd be dragged to jail.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And to that point, it's like, what do these people are expecting is going to happen? That's where I can't rationalize lots of their points on why they're wanting to cancel it. It's just like, we're literally just talking. It's our fan group. There's no violence. There's no inciting violence. There's literally nothing other than the demonization that you've constructed in your head. That is literally it. right? But again, like all of this stuff is allowed on their side.
I saw Jeremy McKenzie. Sorry, Tammy. You go ahead this time.
It's because they fear it, right? So they know that you guys have sway. And even like going back to what you said earlier about anybody that talks to ferrymen, he has a way of kind of opening their eyes and making them kind of see where you guys are coming from. I think that's exactly what they're afraid of.
Well, they're also afraid of the ideology that will ultimately stamp them out. That is their fear. And when we talk about nationalism, like that's why they freak out when like Ferryman has talked to Thomas Rousseau and Thomas Sewell, both nationalists from America and Australia respectively. They lost their shit over that. Rachel Gilmore was writing hit pieces about that, or doing her little videos on Twitter, I should say, and TikTok about this. She was so upset, but it's just like, these people are discussing ideas. You guys are allowed to exist in your space and to discuss these ideas. But the problem is, you're exactly right, is they're afraid of what is going to come next, because the competing ideology is what they're actually afraid of, because they know that it's like classic things that happen with any cult. It's like any outsider, any opinions is just completely shunned. Oh, don't talk to that person, because they don't want the veil to come off, right? So that's where it's like they have kind of control of the masses, and they think they have the moral superiority right now. But I think the right is going to come back in a way that is probably going to look really ugly to them, and they're not going to like it. So that would probably be the evidence on why they're freaking out so hard.
I saw Jeremy and Ferryman walking up to the reporter for the, Sudbury.com.
Sudbury? Yeah.
They walked up to the guy's car, and he rolled up his window, and they're like, "Hey man, we just want to talk. Like, there are kids out." And they're like, why are you here? And they're like, "Oh, we're just reporting on the event." And he's like, "Well, if you guys are going to report on the event and take pictures, why don't you come and have a hamburger?" And he just like rolled up his window again.
So you can tell that those people are probably of a leftist ideology, but believe it or not, like even journalists, I would say, that are on the right, let's take a jab at Rebel News for a second. Rebel News, I mean, notwithstanding that Jeremy's kind of suing us right now, but Rebel News would still shy away from it. So when the HateGate article came out, it was at the same time as the Million March for Kids, and Sheila Gunn Reid came down to Regina and was attending that one and documenting it. So I actually went up to her and I said, "Hey, you've got to know a little bit about this. Like, what's your thoughts? Are you going to cover it? Blah, blah, blah. What's this HateGate article is huge. You're in it. Like your name is in it. Why aren't you commenting on it?" And she's like, "Oh, I have no idea about it, anything about it. We've all been in Israel for the last couple weeks, so we're all kind of getting back. We got lots to do, whatever. So if it's important information, we'll cover it or whatever," is what she said. And I'm like, well, I think it's pretty important. Like, you should, you guys are in it. And the more that I talked to her, she's like, "Oh yeah." And she started telling me stuff about it. So she knew exactly what was in it. She had already seen the documents based on the conversation I had with her, but she wasn't going to cover it. So that same mentality will happen from people that are supposed to be on our side as well. And like I said, I can kind of get more into the Rebel angle if you want, but
Rebel News is a bunch of garbage.
Yes.
I was gonna put it out there. I don't trust Rebel News worth a shit. To me, when you watch it, it looks like really bad acting, especially if it's what's his name, David Menzies. It all seems very
clickbaity.
Yes, thank you. And I have other concerns with them that I'm not going to voice on here because I don't want to get sued. But I really don't trust them. I mean, they have released some stuff in the past that I think the one where Sheila Gunn Reid was with Neely Kaplan, I damn near died when I saw that because Neely behaved like a lunatic as always. So that one I retweeted, right? There's some stuff that I can appreciate that they've done. But they're no better than any of the mainstream media outlets. And
exactly. They just have a different leaning.
Yeah,
I think it's a limited hangout.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot more to like the Rebel thing, like because and you may or may not know this, but like when Christine Anderson came, she's a German European member of Parliament. She came over here for our speaking tour, and she met with some conservative MPs or whatever. But she took a picture with Derek Rance, holding up Old Slashy. And Derek told her the joke, told her all about Diagolon, and she's like, this is awesome. She even said she would do it again. Alexa Lavoie of Rebel News went in and was trying to really, like, she asked her the question multiple times to try to kind of pin her in a corner, to be able to denounce Diagolon and call us neo-Nazis or whatever the case may be, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, there's things like that where they can really show their bias. And again, like I talked about this at the start, is like no enemies to the right. That's where people kind of need to start viewing things. Until we take down this leftist monster, then we can kind of bicker amongst ourselves. But Rebel definitely doesn't see it that way. Did you guys pay attention to any of this Tommy Robinson stuff and Beth Ann Nadwell?
Yeah, a little bit.
I saw a little bit through I think it was Chris LaPointe's page, Diagolon Studios.
Yeah.
But I don't know a ton about it. I know that the whole thing seemed like a setup.
It was. So that's how Rebel News essentially does their fundraising, is they do these inflammatory stunts to be able to get money from people, right? So another person that you should have on, and I can help connect you to, is Beth Ann. She was the whistleblower in this whole Tommy Robinson thing. But basically what it comes down to is, and it's ironic because, the entire time that Harrison Faulkner was talking with Tommy about Beth Ann's allegations, he never once said that she was wrong in what she was saying. And there's been nobody that was also at that party. I think there was 8 people that were there in Beth Ann and Tommy's party at their dinner. None of them have said that she was wrong either. So there's a lot of, I think, weight to what Beth Ann had said. And basically what it comes down to is he was drunk and doing coke, and he told the people at this dinner that he was going to get arrested in Calgary. And lo and behold, guess what? Gets arrested. Right then and there, there's already a website set up that was renewed back in April of this year, SaveTommy.com. That was the fundraising site that Rebel News used to be able to collect all of these funds from unwitting grandmothers and just general supporters of Rebel News. All of this money goes into one giant pot, okay? And this is where Diagolon has specifically called them out, because for the entire time, I should actually mention this too. With as far as Chris Lysak goes, Diagolon raised almost $300,000. Diagolon and friendly people raised $300,000 to be able to get that man out of jail, and that was out of basically the generosity of our community's hearts. We had 4 fundraising streams back in February of this year to be able to get a bunch of money, and one before Christmas as well to be able to secure the retainer for the lawyer. They did like a 12-hour marathon stream till like 4 a.m. Anyways.
Sounds like terrorism to me.
Yeah. But that's what we did, and we all did it through Gifts and Go. So there's a way to be able to track the funds, right? So Diagolon itself did not hold any money. Any streamers such as myself that did get money through Rumble Rants or Super Chats or whatever sent that there. I matched whatever amount was submitted to me, and I think some other guys did too. Anyways, when it comes to the trucker defense or all of the fundraising that Rebel News did, particularly around the Freedom Convoy and stuff, all of that money goes into one giant pot. And that's basically their operating cash. So they'll pick and choose how much money. So when you're contributing to Rebel News and you think that you're spending your money and it's going to go to this single thing, that's not how it goes. Ezra Levant even admitted on Timcast IRL that money is sometimes used for operations, and that's if there's a surplus there, that's where it's going to go. So Rebel News is essentially stealing from people that are donating money to these causes. The reason I bring that up is specifically around Chris Lysak, because all of this stuff was he said he had fundraising and all this money was going to be there. And as soon as Diagolon stepped in and started raising money, he said, Diagolon's attached to it. I can't do this anymore, whatever the case may be, right? We started questioning and saying, hey, where's this money going? How much was fundraised for it? Where's the financials behind this, whatever? And that's when the whole shitstorm started between Jeremy and Ezra is also suing Jason Levine. So there's a lot of drama for coverage over the Coots Forum and asking questions and whatnot. So there's a whole lot of drama around that. But it's funny because as soon as he started getting called out about that, he started up a Gifts and Go for Chris Carber to be able to start fundraising for him to be able to get him a lawyer, not through Rebel News' site, right? Why is that? Because there's a paper trail to that. So there's a lot of shenanigans that are going on at Rebel News. And again, that's another rabbit hole that I think you could probably go down and, find some really unexpected things at the bottom of it.
Does it have anything to do with crypto accounts?
Not to my knowledge, no. If you want to get into crypto accounts, that would probably be BJ Dichter of the trucker leadership during the convoy. There
is some crypto accounts with Rebel News. And I don't want to get too much into it on here, but it's something that was brought to my attention recently that I'm now questioning.
I'll have you all know
I think
that
it'd be easy for them to clear it up, but just audit the accounts, and if you got nothing to hide, then show it. These are fairly serious actors. We're basically saying that you're defrauding Canadians. If you want to clear your name, then here's the financial statements, right?
Well, and it's not hard to see where their money goes to, right? Because they do, I believe on their website, they have a registered charity number. And you can go on and you can search the registered charity number. And then, of course, there's ways that you can see all of the donations and everything that are going to them and what accounts they're going to, which if anybody's wanting to dig on that, there's some information for you. And that's all I'd like to see that.
It. I'm blocked by Ezra, just so everyone knows.
Me too. Really?
Are you?
Yeah, I know. I don't get blocked by anyone, and I'm blocked by him.
What the hell did you say to get blocked by Ezra?
Ezra went on a blocking spree around this point in time that I was talking about. Anybody with slashes got a block. I'm blocked from Rebel News. I'm blocked from Ezra. I'm blocked from a couple of their journalists. Strangely enough, the CCFR. Yeah.
Wow.
Slashes in your Twitter handle will get you blocked by a lot of people. There's wacko leftists, like the Anti-Hate Network, people a part of the Anti-Hate Network that I've never talked to in my entire life, never interacted with, that they all have me blocked, So yeah, no, you can definitely tell that the tolerant left is open to having conversations.
I just asked Ezra where the money for the Cootsboro went to, and instant
he
block.
blocked you.
Yep.
Yeah, he probably went
Just
through
asking.
that whole thread and just clicked everybody.
Yeah.
But so that to me right there, though, if you have nothing to hide, why don't you just answer the question? If people are wanting to know where the money goes, why not just tell them instead of having all of this speculation?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Right?
Pretty easy.
Yeah. To me, it seems like a pretty simple task. Hey, where did the money go? And then you just answer the question. I don't.
How
I don't
dare
see
you
why
ask that question? How dare you?
Yeah, I guess I don't see why that's so hard. And then to then go and start blocking people, you're making yourself look guilty.
Aren't we supposed to be about accountability? That's the whole point of why we're speaking up. Transparency, accountability, integrity.
I think there's more to it. It's because that's the way, again, people to the right of where Ezra is standing, that's the way that's our worldview. Those are our values. That's not their values. Lots of the people that are caught up in the conservative movement, they are progressive. They are left-leaning people that have just found a new camp, particularly because they don't like Trudeau. So there's lots of people that would be supportive of Rebel because they think that's where they need to sit. And that's why they're so quick to be able to exclude anybody that's more right-leaning from anybody that levies criticism of them. That's been my difficulty with the People's Party, particularly of late. I've had some of their people being extremely mad at me. I'm like, I'm not voting for Max, but I'm at least saying if Max is saying something good or the party's doing something good, I'm going to congratulate you because that should be rewarded, right? We're playing Pavlov's dog here, and their nose should be slapped and their head shoved when they piss on the floor, right? That's. But that type of criticism levies you being annexed by them, and they don't like that, right? Because they view it as some type of slant, and you just got to overlook it. I'm like, the reason of how the Conservatives got to where they were because so many people said, I'm just going to overlook this. I'm going to overlook this. This is fine.
That's how Canada got to where it is.
Yeah. Exactly.
Even better example, 100%. Yeah. So it's that level of complacency. And that's why for my recommendation for the People's Party, it's when criticism's levied against them, don't discount, from the right, don't discount them, the people that are saying that, because you might actually learn something that's going to help you out.
Good point.
Well
Yeah,
said.
you're 100% right. And I find though more and more that anybody that is not everybody, but anybody that is strongly affiliated with a political party or has the belief that they're going to save them is very, very quick to jump on you if you criticize anything about them. They don't. It's cognitive dissonance. They don't want to hear the bad things, and they don't have the capacity to listen to the criticism and critically think about it.
Yeah, 100%. And the only way that you can get past that is by speaking objectively.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hopefully this podcast, even like just this talk that we've had today, I hope people listen to it and, it kind of puts some things into perspective and they kind of, maybe start to question things. And I think people are. I think it's happening a lot slower than what it needs to happen. But everybody needs to understand, like I said before, this is the reason that Canada is in the state that it's in. Because we've been complacent, we haven't asked questions, we haven't thought critically, and now we are paying hugely for it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's been a common trend for a very long time that probably 90% of the population have not been able to think for themselves, and they only see black and white, and they don't see the rainbow. I don't mind my reference to rainbow, but everything is not just black and white, right? And they can't see beyond that unless someone tells them what to see, which is, Big Daddy, whoever.
I think it's getting harder to do that, though. I honestly do. I think the immigration topic is going to be the biggest election issue, bar none.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like, if for these people, they're not understanding the upswing of it, because this is the way that so many Canadians feel. Like I said, you can't go into Superstore or Walmart and think this is the Canada that you grew up in and that this is all right, no matter how tolerant that you are, right? Even if you are bilingual, you still can't converse with a cashier. Yeah. So there's so many problems like that. People are noticing, people are starting, like I referenced the documentary Europa before. Like that's something I would recommend everybody watch. If you're white and a history buff, then definitely watch that, because it's going to give you just a different presentation on history and really get you to asking some questions on who's actually pulling the strings and why. And the last 2 hours of it is all about white replacement of European diaspora populations and why it's happening. And like, I remember watching it a couple months ago, and I was absolutely heartbroken. I got 2 young kids, and I'm just looking at the future that is being completely ripped from underneath them. And it's fucking maddening. It's saddening. And if more people actually understand what is really going on, you're soon going to move past these political parties and lots of this pettiness at this level, and understand like what is actually going on and why. And that's where you're going to find a level of collectivism. And I think this is where Diagolon, specifically in Canada, has shone above everybody else, is because we've been beating that drum for long enough that people are actually starting to wake up to that fact. And I think that's one incredibly important message, is you're not going to get out of this without some level of collectivization. And, some people want to collectivize around a political party, and, other people want to collectivize around people, and some don't want to at all. But once you actually realize that that's the only way through, I think then that's the awakening that needs to happen. And in my opinion, I think mass immigration is the catalyst to that.
I agree. And I'm glad that you guys have been around to speak up. And even in the beginning, I remember seeing, some of the tweets from some of the Diagolon guys and thinking like, oh my gosh, like that's really harsh. And now I have an entirely different opinion of it, because now I've really come to see that you guys are right.
And the difference of that is 6 months. And I think that's the point that Ferry was pointing out to you, is 6 months ago, there's no way that you wouldn't have said, I'm not racist. And now you're like taking a step back to be able to think about it, because the message is truly resonating with people.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I'm so glad he said that to me. And I wasn't kidding when I said, like, it's really stuck with me. And I've thought about it so much over the last, week or however long it's been since he said it. It's crossed my mind on multiple occasions. And I actually did thank him, like in a response for saying it, because it was just one of those moments where I was like, it was really nice to have somebody just say that. So I really think that more people should kind of, give the Diagolon guys a chance and actually listen to what you guys are saying and kind of the message that you guys are putting out there. And I do think, and this is something else actually that I wanted to touch on. I do think that there is some hard feelings towards Diagolon for the incident that happened as well with a comment made by Jeremy McKenzie with Pierre Poilievre's wife. And I don't know if you want to just kind of touch on that. I don't think it was really what it seemed, but I think that put a bad taste in people's mouths as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak for Jeremy on that by any means. I mean, I'm personally fine with rape jokes. Norm Macdonald does a really, really good one. Actually does a couple of them. No, like, I think specifically around that, if it was literally any other person, I don't think anybody would have batted an eye, but it's just our enemies are that ready to jump on something like that. It was ammunition for them. Now, again, I'm not going to speak for Jeremy, but he was drinking at that point in time. And pretty much exactly since then, he hasn't had a lick of alcohol. So there's a huge change in that. And that's, again, like, months after that, Sheila Gunn, or maybe it was around that point in time, Sheila Gunn Reid just called him a drunk vet and completely smeared him that way. Thanks for that one, Rebel. But yeah, like, you can kind of say what you want around the joke or whatever. Pierre Poilievre sicked the RCMP on him and nothing happened because of it. So again, it's like, the problem, and this is, I think, like the state of comedy in itself, is because we've policed language so much, something like that, it gets taken the wrong way, And I think for all intents and purposes, anybody that is a DAG or part of the community understands that there is a humor to it. And I've asked Jeremy this himself when I had him on, like, this is the way that he was in the military, and I have other military friends, and their humor is pretty dark. So for your normie plural clutching conservative, that probably did come off as probably one of the worst things that you could ever say about someone, So yeah, no, like I understand and I get that, but for me, it was really a non sequitur.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of us, it was just. I think it took people back. I know when I first heard it, it even took me back. And then, and I have a pretty dark sense of humor, but then after I kind of thought about it for a bit, I'm like, I don't, well, you can clearly tell if you listen to it and I think there was even a video, he's not serious. He's not.
No, and I had to listen to it 3 times because everybody was losing their shit over it. And I listened to it like 3 times over and I'm like, am I at the wrong timestamp? Like, where's this joke here that everybody's freaking out about?
Yeah, it was very clear, like, first of all, he was drunk, and that he was joking. And I think too, there is former military members that's have a different sense of humor than the general public. And I had a good conversation with Chris Lapointe about this not too long ago, where he was kind of explaining, the military humor and, they see so much awful stuff that all they have is to just kind of joke to make light of it. And I think that's something that was discounted in all of that as well, is where people don't understand that side of it. And once I kind of had that conversation with him, I really started to have a better understanding of, even some of the comments that you guys have made over time where, like I said, maybe 2 years ago or something, I would see comments and I'd be like, holy shit, you guys. And then now I see
you probably could just scroll through my timeline from today and probably find a couple.
Yeah. And now it doesn't even faze me. Now, if anything, I usually appreciate the comments. So I want
to throw this at you too. shortly after that, Mark Slapinski, who is a big kind of
Old
person in the
Slappy.
CPC sphere.
Oh, I can't
Yeah.
stand him.
He was making derogatory comments about Justin Trudeau's minor daughter about basically being a whore, right? And the CPC, lots of them even said that they had no problem with that. But again, it's who are you levying this type of comment towards? That's realistically where your protection is going to come in.
Well, and what's interesting about that and what people forget about Mark Slapinski, who has me blocked on every account he has, is he did a video about how all of the unvaccinated should be put into train cars and sent to camp. Mm-hmm. And his exact words in the video, I should have grabbed the video, but I honestly didn't anticipate that we'd be talking about him. In the video, he actually says, we won't force vaccinate them. We'll just take everything away from them until they decide to do it.
Yeah, Scott Moe said this pretty much the exact same thing.
Lovely.
It's wild that people have forgotten this. And he was very, very left-leaning at the beginning of COVID and everything. And then he's a perfect example of one of these people who he goes where the clicks are or he goes where the likes are. Yes, Dave, I was hoping you would find it. Please play it.
Solution to the anti-vaxxer question. And some might even say the final solution to the anti-vaxxer question. Here's what we're going to do. Just to start, we're going to take little stickers and we're going to put them on the houses of all the unvaccinated people, just so people know who they are and where they live. And if that doesn't work, what we're going to do is take all the unvaccinated people, put them on cattle cars and ship them off to work camps. Nice, big, powerful work camps, either in Northern Ontario or in Quebec. And here's how this is going to work. We're going to force them to work, free labor, get them to build us stuff, and segregate them. So it's killing multiple birds with one stone. Not only are we taking these dirty, disgusting, unvaccinated people and removing them from society, but we're also using them to work for us. And we can even loot them and use their assets to fund other parts of society. Now, the way this will work is that they can leave at any time, as long as they are vaccinated. And I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's the one.
Wow.
You should just substitute unvaccinated and Jeet, and that would probably suffice.
Oh my
God. So that's the video that everybody forgets about. He's always been about clicks and likes and where he can go to get the most attention. And he finally figured out that the so-called fringe minority is a lot bigger than they ever led anybody to believe. And then that's when he came in and started doing his so-called journalism, which is not journalism at all.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Didn't he do like a follow-up apology video in regards to that video or something?
It wasn't a full apology. He didn't admit any guilt.
He said it was a joke.
Oh, of course.
And that's what he does with everything. And he actually, I really have a bone to pick with him because in the early days when he was still, kind of leaning towards hating the unvaccinated, he came after myself and a few other large accounts. And what he did was he was creating alt accounts and then baiting people and saying some really terrible things to people. And then when they would respond, he would have them banned from X or Twitter at that time. So he actually did it to me. And then when I figured out who it was, he blocked me, and he's blocked me on everything since. I have no respect for him. I think I've been tagged in a few of his what we'll say so-called Picton pieces that he's done since Robert Picton has been murdered in prison, and he keeps saying like that was Trudeau involved, and it's just that clickbait thing, right? So people will click on it, and then he has absolutely no evidence. And nobody, I don't think, has researched this as much as I have in the last 6 months. And I can tell you, I wanted Trudeau to be involved, but I do not have that smoking gun. And he continually puts this stuff out there to get people to click on his stuff. And it's gross. It's so gross.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm
Anyways.
okay. Personally, I am so excited for when you do like a deep dive and flesh all of this stuff out, because that is something that needs to come to light. I saw that Uncle Hack was wanting to talk to you about this as well when you're kind of done all of your research and stuff too. That'd be huge, because the Danger Cats have been involved with that type of controversy revolving around the Picton case as well.
Who is Uncle Hack?
Uncle Hack, he's one of the comedians from Danger Cats.
Okay, I know who Danger Cats is. Kind of like I've heard of them.
Yeah, I just saw on Twitter, because you made a post about, I think it was maybe when you were talking about the Picton book, and he had commented, said he'd love to talk to you when you're done your research.
Oh, okay, I'll have to go back and actually look for that. I would love to talk to everybody about it, and I actually did finally. I'm not holding my breath just yet, but I did find somebody who has the book who's willing to send me a copy. So we've been in talks the last 2 days, just kind of figuring out the logistics and stuff. But my hope is kind of once I get through that, I'll be able to hopefully, have a better idea of what's been going on. Anyways.
Just one comment on that. Like, so would you, in what you've done the research on so far and your findings on that way, would you equate it to being the Epstein Island of Canada?
Yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But it's in my opinion, based on everything that I've learned, it's a lot darker than that. So it was a dumping ground is what it seems to be. And I recently, I had talked a little bit in some tweets about Starnet being involved, which was one of the gambling and pornography companies that got raided. And I did just find out that there's another pornography company that was affiliated as well. So I haven't done anything on that just yet, because I want to make sure I have my ducks in a row before I say something about it. But it would, if people truly knew how dark it actually was, I don't think that they would be able to take it. And I do sometimes wonder if that's maybe why it's been kept as quiet as it has been, because it's really awful.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that.
Yeah. Anyways, Ashley, you just came back. I saw you kind of dropped off there for a second.
I sure did. I'm back.
Were you having
I don't know what happened
emergency?
at all. No clue.
Climate emergency.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been awesome to have you on. I'm so glad.
This was so much fun, and it blew by, like it just disappeared.
Yeah, it did. And I'm so glad we were able to kind of have somebody, from Diagolon come on and speak to, some of the stuff that people are seeing, and really kind of clear the name of Diagolon, because I think it needed to be done. And, hopefully it makes people see you guys in a much better light, like some of us do now. So thank you again for joining us. I'd like you just to let people know where they can find you, where they can listen to your podcast, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate you having me on, because it's something that I wanted to get out there more and talk to a bunch more people. And it's just as easy to go on someone else's show, a lot less prep and a lot less of the production side, which you guys will understand. So I really appreciate that. The Schmidt House Podcast, you can watch me on Rumble Tuesday nights at 8:15 Sask time. And then also, since the Rage Road Terror Tour is going on for the month of July, if you want tickets, there's a bunch of shows left. Tickets are still available. Visit thegrift.shop for tickets, and hope to see lots of you guys out if you guys are exploring the deep waters and the murky mess that is Philip's Graveyard of Diagolon. That'd be a great place to find probably some like-minded people if you like lots of the stuff that I was talking about. Or if you don't, who cares? No one cares. No one ever cared. So that's it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Zach. Stu,
thank you.
Final thoughts for you?
Trust no one. No, I'm kidding. Trust no political party, and practice your CE5 protocol so we can call the aliens to come get us. That's my final thoughts.
Dave.
So I was one of those people that knew nothing about Diagolon going into this. So I usually talk more, and that's why I was quiet and stuff. So I think I know a little bit more. That documentary, Europa, does it mention the Kalergi plan by any chance?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does.
It mentions that. So back just to like a couple of points that you talked about. Nationalism, you mentioned. So that it's a huge threat to globalism, which is what I personally think is going on right now. Mm-hmm. And then if you look at politics, no matter which way the pendulum swings left or right through all of history, in my opinion, the final goal has been an amalgamation of power. So it gets done regardless if it's the left or the right in charge of what's going on. And then as far as your outlook on immigration, I'm a firm believer that it is on purpose. They come from countries where intelligence agencies created a crisis, a war, a famine, whatever reason for these people to start moving. And then that leads to the globalism where they arrive in our country and they start getting rid of certain cultures, certain religions, and creating one thing that is Canada, that is one step closer to that globalist goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I would highly recommend watching Europa: The Last Battle. It's a 12-hour long documentary, but it's extremely eye-opening. And like the biggest question that I think you'd have to kind of reconcile at the end of the day, it's like you understand that history is written by the victors, but it's who really won World War II. And I think that it'll boil it down to the crux to where all of a sudden those gaps were like, okay, the Rothschilds, okay, the banking system, the immigration, right, all the globalism, who's running these NGOs, like who is Klaus Schwab, the Rockefellers, like it boils it all down, and it kind of, you go down the rabbit hole and you eventually leads you to the right spot. And then everything just starts to make sense. Like I've talked about this before. I think because I was aware of lots of this. Sorry to keep dragging this out, but I was aware of lots of this stuff. And I would say, if you would have asked me before watching Europa, I would have said like out of 100, I'm probably like an 80-85% there of knowing, who the players are, all of the stuff, all of the conspiracy alleys that we've gone down. Right. Mm-hmm. After watching Europa, I felt like I was at 10%. Right. That's how much stuff there actually is. And you can debate whether like the facts of it and stuff. And I was fact checking in real time, like whatever your case may be, the level of truth behind lots of it. But there's enough questions to be asked that it does the leads to follow the right paths to be able to connect enough dots where you're like, okay, that's where I was before.
Zach, just while you're talking about this, if somebody does want to watch it, where would they find it?
You can watch it on Odyssey. It's on BitChute. If you just search Europa on Twitter, there'll be people that'll post all about it. Europa: The Last Battle. But yeah, it's a 12-hour long documentary, so dedicate probably a week or so to be able to get through it, but it's extremely eye-opening.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Ash, you are up next week and we want to hear your final thoughts.
All right. So I think my final thoughts are that I just feel like we're in such a divisive time right now, and I think it's important to find common ground with people where we can. We don't have to agree on everything. That's not the point. If we're actually supposed to be inclusive, then let's actually be inclusive and figure this shit out as a country. We have a beautiful place worth protecting, so we need to talk to each other. You don't have to agree with each other. Just have some freaking conversations. Because that's how we need to see each other as humans, and that, even the evil Diagolon out there, they're just regular, nice people who care about their country. And that's not my thoughts. I actually like Diagolon, but that's my joke. But I also think it's just so important to use humor to wade through these dark times, which is why I personally have appreciated some of the epic Diagolon memes out there. So thanks to all you guys out there for helping to create that levity. And that's basically my final thoughts on this episode. So thanks for coming on, Zach. And then for next episode, we're having a very super special guest again. We're having our very own Tammy. And we've already done one episode on the Picton pig farm stuff. And Tammy's been doing so much research that we're just going to get a little update on her on just what else she's uncovered since then, because she's just finding so much and making so many connections that I think it's important to kind of keep having that conversation going and, letting Tammy kind of take us down that rabbit hole.
Awesome.
Sick.
I am looking forward to it. All right. Well, thank you again, Zach, for joining us. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.